You know, I used to do this channel with a very specific intention in mind. I started it out in the form that it's currently in around late 2016. That's when I moved away from all of the video game and media reviews that I had done in a rather traditional format and moved on more to analysis as well as vlogs, copied primarily along the lines of Digi and the procrastinators, people I've talked about on this channel many times. You can't go 3 videos without hearing them mentioned. Of course, that's an exaggeration, but those of you who have been here for a while get the point. And you know, I can't help but feel as though my motivations with this channel have become muddied, less clear. Your eyeballs have been fogged up. Your eyeglasses have been fogged up. Or at least mine have been. And that's because this channel wasn't just made with that specific intention, initially. It also was with the purpose of chronicling the trajectory of my life and all of the weird, wacky places that it would go to, so I could have an archive for myself. I could go back and I could watch these videos, and even if I wasn't talking about one thing in particular that was occurring around that time, I would definitely remember it, because I would remember what that time was like. And so it was also a digital diary. And as it archived the direction in which my life was steering toward, it would also, and this is less so, steer my life in a certain direction. I think there's a certain amount of self-loathing that a lot of people who make very personal videos have. There's a certain self-loathing they have about the kind of content that they do, where I've noticed that they'll say, wow, I'm really letting this performance thing dictate the course of my life. Am I only doing things because they would be interesting to put in a video? What those people fail to realize is that this hobby is no different than any other creative pursuit that one might dedicate a lot of their self to. Making YouTube videos, while it requires less technical skill than doing something like painting, it nonetheless requires a certain type of skill. Capturing audience members who will follow the trajectory of your life, the archival of your life for 5+ years, requires the cultivation of a certain kind of skill, of personality. One that I spent all of my teen years chasing after. So what those self-loathing folks who do this kind of thing that I do fail to realize is people would not look at them badly if they said that they oriented their lives around their paintings or their stories, poems, any number of creative things they might be doing. This is simply the creative thing that I and they are doing. And so, it should not warrant a reaction from others or ourselves that is self-loathing in nature when we say something like, I make certain decisions about my life because it will lead to certain videos down the line being made. There shouldn't be anything self-loathing about that. And so it's certainly true that I've made decisions about where I'm going in my life to make certain videos. I've gone to certain places just to make certain videos. I have learned things, done things, just to make certain videos. And in that sense, you can say that since February 2015 when I started this channel, since mid-2016 when I started going hard on this channel, it's affected my life. And it's affected the way that I think about my life. But I do not think that's bad. But I wanted other people to be doing what I'm doing. Not because it's lonely, not because I wanted to capture a new kind of audience by developing the community around a new kind of genre, or any of these more complicated reasons you might think for why someone would want to promote a movement on YouTube. I started making these videos and I started encouraging other people to do the same. I wanted to see the same because this is my favorite kind of video to watch. And while during some younger years of mine that was more so the case, it still is the case. I have not lost track of myself up to now. There were a few times in between when I did, but those are stories that have been stored in other videos, namely the monster I became on hormones. If you look real closely into that one and the surrounding videos around it, you'll quickly find out that I lost all trace and track of myself. However, now, as someone who's back on the beaten path, I do find that I love this content, this kind of content, quite a lot, the ecosystem that's sprung up around it. But it's also not exactly what I envisioned. I remember when I met No Thank You. It was, at some point, I want to say mid-2018, summer of that year. He had joined one of my public Discord servers that I had that year. You know, one of the ones that I just made on a whim and hadn't deleted yet. He decided to join it because he found my videos in an 8chan thread. And like the first thing that we did when he joined the server was debate about communism. You know, he was like an anarcho-communist type guy. I was a tanky back then. So we debated about stuff. And I really liked this guy's energy. So we became friends and we were talking in DMs and stuff. And he linked me this video he made called the Cardistry Thesis that was made like around 2016, 2017. And he told me that it was based on Digibro's insomnia analysis. And I said to him at the time, this is my favorite kind of YouTube video. And he said back to me at the time something like, this is my favorite kind of video too. And we just kept talking about why we liked this genre of video, this like isolated guy who's introspecting about their life and curating a bunch of random clips that connect together from going insane in their room and speaking about their thoughts in an autobiographical and philosophical way. You know, some Shinsei Kamata-chan-esque music video footage shown throughout, abstract shit thrown in. We were talking about this longer form of personal diatribe edited together as a vlog. And it really struck a chord with me what he saw in those kinds of videos, because it felt like what I had saw in those kinds of videos. Sometime later, I want to say in like early 2019, I think it wasn't long after this album dropped, so you could probably just look up the album, see the date, and his live stream will be around that point. This 12-hour Merzbow album drops, and he wants to listen to it as a Merzbow fan. And I'm subscribed to his channel. You know, he only has the one channel at the time, the No Thank You channel. I jump onto the stream the moment it hits, and he's like listening to this 12-hour Merzbow album and streaming as an excuse to listen to the whole thing, and as something to keep him entertained throughout the whole thing, as a challenge to himself, you know, fun, lo-fi kind of thing. And I quickly see it as a challenge to myself to watch the whole thing. You know? I'm sitting there, hovered over my keyboard, looking straight ahead, typing away, and having a back and forth with him this whole thing. Mundane, slice of life, comfy, cozy, kind of autobiographical experience I'm getting gleamed into my eyeballs and through my ears. And I liked the personality the guy had on camera. It struck a chord with me. And so I tell him, like, you really gotta make a channel where you're vlogging. And I'm really pushing this to him because he brought up the idea, and it was probably something he was thinking about for a while, and I affirmed it as much as possible and tried to push him to do it. And what do you know? Not too long after, like a day after that stream, he releases his vlog channel, which is just No Thank You spelled backwards, and then a couple vlogs to go with it. Of course, I watch all of them. I was one of the first views on all of them. And I hit that notification bell, and I kept watching from there. And I saw him get better really quick. And I thought, this is great. You know, finally somebody else is doing this kind of content. Instantly, I'm promoting him all over my channel, trying to get people to go subscribe. And that's that. I meet another guy who was not very Denpa, you know, wasn't really influenced by the same kind of things. This Korean kid who I thought had a lot going for him, you know, and I sympathized with a lot as someone who struggles with mental illness myself. This Korean kid made a YouTube channel, and he hadn't posted any videos. He had just been posting on Discord, and this was more towards like mid 2019. He was posting a lot of videos inspired by this other channel called Hiding in My Room. So, you know, very away from the digi PCP, no thank you, OsakaSyndrome sphere at that point. But I still liked Hiding in My Room's videos for what they were. I liked the comfy aspects of them, you know, the more mundane clips. And he's saying in this Discord server we're both in, like, how much he wants to make videos, but how he was nervous about, you know, making bad videos at the start, which is something everyone does. Everybody makes bad videos at the start. So I make a video called, like, fail as much as possible. And he watches this, like, 30-minute vlog that I made that's basically saying, like, go for it, you gotta go do it, that's the only way you're gonna get better, and I believe in you, man. And he watches that video, and he releases a couple videos of his own. The first one was called School is Prison, and the second one, released around the same day, was called, like, The System Can Be Exploited. And in these videos, he's describing his whole experience with school and dropping out of school, which I related to a lot. I had also talked to him on Discord about that. And you know, we were super friendly with each other back then. And so I'm commenting on these videos, you know, complimenting him on them because I thought they were comfy, you know, I thought he had some unique stories to tell. And instantly, I make a response video to his video, School is Prison. And I'm saying, like, all of my own thoughts on the matter. I'm praising his video. I'm telling my subscribers to go watch his channel. Now again, this channel had like 2 videos on it. It had just started out. And so I was trying to push my people to go to his thing. Now eventually, me and that Korean kid would cut ties with each other. I hope he's doing all right. You know, I hope all is well in his life. I don't want to speak ill of him or anything like that. But, you know, we ended up going our separate ways. And I hope he's doing well. I hope him and his family are as happy as they possibly can be. But, you know, for whatever reason, things didn't work out between the two of us. And so we went our separate ways. There were a couple of other channels that ended up springing up that I had a little bit less direct interaction with. You know, Princess Plunderphonics, I knew way before she started doing the whole Denpa thing. You know, I knew her back when she was Weeb Trash Productions in 2017. We were friends in 2017. And she, you know, is kind of off doing her own thing by this point, inspired by No Thank You, inspired by other people. Dotesmite shows up without knowing anything about me, just inspired by No Thank You, so it becomes this kind of incestuous thing. Artificial Night Sky and That White Hand spring on the scene, and from what I've heard from their live streams and stuff, they were partially inspired by me, partially inspired by other people. I did not directly speak to those people before they started making videos. You know, this Flubberson person's doing her own thing. It's nice seeing a female on the scene. You know, there's all these, like, either Denpa channels or Denpa adjacent channels. You know, Jelaine Caucus, she's doing some wildly creative stuff out there. I wish I was smart enough to understand some of the points in her videos, but I'm more or less a simple guy. But I respect what she does a hell of a lot. And she was partially, maybe like 15% inspired by me. I remember her talking on my live streams, you know, before she ever watched No Thank You or any of these other people. And I remember her being like one of the most interesting personalities that would frequently come to my chat. And I watched some of her videos back then, the few that she had released. And then, you know, she was there. Now she's like a a more pivotal figure, I suppose you could say, in this genre of video. She's certainly doing some of the most groundbreaking or interesting things with it. But that's her own thing. Karesu started making videos in the months prior to me going to go live with him. So I was talking to him after asking him if I could live with him because I was in a really desperate situation back then, didn't have my own place. I asked this guy, one of the random people who friended me on Discord, I asked him just out of the blue, hey, can I come live with you? And we become better friends with each other. We get a rapport with each other. He comes to know me pretty damn well. And I realize that he's someone with a great character. Of course, what I came to find out through knowing him even more is that he is someone of an astounding character. There are few people on this earth who are as good, purely good of human beings as Karesu is. And for that reason, I'm deeply, deeply grateful to have met someone as good-natured and of astute character as him. But I come to meet him, I build a rapport with him, and as we're becoming closer friends, he starts making videos himself, these long esoteric vlogs with, you know, stuff influenced by me, stuff influenced by No and all the other Denpas that he starts watching as he gets into this community. But really he only knew me and Artificial Night Sky, who I haven't talked too much about just because, you know, I realized Pars was influenced by me, but, you know, he's really got his own, like, niche otaku thing going on. I don't want to comment too much on his stuff because sometimes it almost feels as though it's from its own world. But, you know, really, really creative and talented guy. But Karesu's doing his own thing, kind of influenced by all these different people, you know, mainly Pars and me. And also influenced by his various interests such as cars and the legality behind and mechanics behind various firearms and their history, their cultural usages, how to be as safe as possible with different firearms or different cars. He knows a lot about these topics and is an incredibly capable and knowledgeable individual. And so he would put that stuff in his videos and it would feel totally different from the rest of the Denpa people because it was focusing on hobbies that felt so anathema to what the rest of us had going on. You know, No and Jelaine Caucus would always be talking about this tech, Linux, autism, and going on for hours about that stuff. But here were some more practical, traditionally masculine interests being represented on the scene. And so he created kind of his own bubble in the sphere, also talking about anime like all of us do, but and using the anime aesthetics like all of us do, but it was different in his own way. He brought his own thing. But when I look at all of this together, to be honest with you, the only things that I really see connecting all of these videos to mine is the autobiographical and personal nature of many of them, the low fidelity footage that's employed, or rather, at times the mundane footage that's employed, because Karesu would not make his videos in 4:3 aspect ratio like this video, or No Thank Yous, or Artificial Night Skies, or Dotesmites, or some of Jelaine's. He would record in 16:9, 60 FPS, 4K, and he would edit his videos that way to create a almost hyper reality within his content. And that was, you know, his own thing. You know, that was a stylistic trend that you could see in his videos. But they also contained a lot of mundane footage. And that mundane footage, something that I caught from the parts of the biggest channel I can think of that was kind of like this or did some of this was like Casey Neistat. He had some mundane footage in his videos. I was inspired by that. Hiding in My Room had some mundane footage in their videos. Digi, with some of the vlogs like the Quarter Centennial Progress Report or parts of Insomnia Analysis, they would include that mundane footage. A lot of slice of life and Iyashike anime that I was inspired by had that kind of stuff going on. A lot of stream of consciousness novels from the Beat generation had some stuff like that going on. This kind of art, that's more postmodern in nature, that is slower, that focuses on the more mundane aspects of life, doesn't have a clear beginning, middle, and end, much of which you'll find from Japan, influenced me a lot, and the kind of videos that I wanted to make a lot. And I noticed literally every single one of these people who makes these videos and this quote-unquote Denpa thing, they all do that. Like, they all include elements of that. So that was something that connected me to Karesu. But what connected all of us together was our usage of anime aesthetics. We all use anime aesthetics in our videos, and we're all influenced by that guy, Digibro, which is, I guess, a girl now, but I'm speaking in past tense because I'm talking about past events. That guy, Digibro, who influenced all of us. We were all influenced by them. And we all were tangentially, at least, influenced by the culture of image boards. None of us were like political extremists or deep into the less than self-aware, I'll put it, meta of the site. But many of us partaked in the memes and shared around some of the aesthetics that are frequently shared on the site that, don't represent the views or opinions of us individually, but we can appreciate, on their own merits. And I think all of us had a sort of morbid curiosity about image boards or image board culture. Not falling into it in this crazy way, or falling into any of this stuff in this crazy way, but appreciating it from a certain angle. Those are basically the things that connect all of us together. And then from there, you can have even wild differences in the personalities of the people in the videos, which serves to make them more interesting. Let your freak flag fly. Show what makes you individual. Or the interests explored or portrayed in the videos, like the Linux autism with Jelaine and No, or the history of something like cars portrayed with Karasu, the particular type of otakudom portrayed by Artificial Night Sky, someone who's a big fan of the harem shit. And then you got me over here. Now, what do I like? I talk about the cultural implications of, the history of, the legal ramifications of, and the philosophy surrounding drugs. That's a big topic of interest. I've covered just about every facet of that, with many stones left unturned still. I've spoken about many stories from my personal life, making this channel markedly more autobiographical than those other guys, simply because I have way more stuff going on in my life than any of those guys. Or I am less of a privacy fag than those guys. And this is a big thing here. Because back before all of these channels that sprung up making videos kind of like mine, back before they sprung up, I had a vision a unified vision of what I wanted quote-unquote Denpa content to be. This movement that's around here today is called Denpa. And it's primarily associated with aesthetics, connotations, and ideologies that I do not associate with personally. Or rather, the personal beliefs and the philosophies surrounding contemporary Denpa content is not something that I can relate to. The people who are enmeshed in Denpa culture are not people that I can relate to. In spite of the fact that I was arguably the progenitor of this whole thing. I mean, after Digibro. Digibro really set up the ignition fuse and lit the match that would lead to the proverbial bomb going off in the form of me. But all those little charges sprinkled all throughout the city, going off at their own rate, in the form of No Thank You, Dotsmite, Jelaine, Kuresu, Artificial Night Sky, That White Hand, that Korean guy, etc., etc. That was influenced by me, sure. But it was different, you know? Like, I may have been the progenitor of that in a way, less of one than Digi, but in my own way, I was the progenitor of that, in that I was the first to take Digi's content, make it more extreme, make it more personal, make it more specifically targeted, and find an audience that was for that was down with that, and then tell everybody else to do the same thing, challenge everybody else to do the same thing. But what I came to learn is the people I challenged to do that didn't ever want to go as far as I wanted them to go. And so my creation, my baby, the thing that I literally decided to call Denpa. Remember that Korean kid I was telling you about? He made a website with his friend, this furry friend he had on Discord. And he made a website called DenpaTube. During a period of time in 2019 when me and No Thank You were not talking to each other, before Dotsmite had ever even discovered Digi's content, before any of these other guys started making videos, it was just me and No back then. I tell this Korean kid that I think the genre of videos that my videos, No's videos, and his videos belong to is called Denpa. And I explained the Japanese term, I explained Denpa media that exist in Japanese culture and society. I explained Denpa characters. And I'm like, our videos, the thing that we're doing is Denpa. That Korean kid makes a video called Denpa long before No's video that was called Denpa, and he makes a website called DenpaTube. I start posting my videos on there. There are some long-lost, never-to-be-seen videos that were posted exclusively to there that, because the hosting for the website, you know, his friend didn't want to pay for it anymore, because that ran out, the website died. But back when it was around, you could see my videos there, you could see that Korean kid's videos, and some other people's videos there. And it was called DenpaTube. No had no involvement in this because we weren't talking to each other at the time. But I was the first one to call it Denpa, this kind of video. And so, not only do I set off the chain reaction to get all these people to go start making videos, and I'm constantly doing calls to action in my own vlogs to go get people to start making videos. I come up with the term for what this movement would end up being called. And now, I feel like fundamentally at odds with the people who make up this scene. I don't relate to them. I don't relate to their content. And, you know, I relate to aspects of it, the aspects I described, but fundamentally I feel like I'm a different person than these people. And it's because I think these people are fucking cowards. You know how I said that I decided to make certain decisions about my life and have them be oriented around this YouTube channel, to make those decisions actively considering this YouTube channel? I also made the decision to forfeit certain things because of this YouTube channel, because of the things I would say on this YouTube channel, because of the name, the real name that I knew that was attached to this YouTube channel, the face that I knew that was attached to this YouTube channel. I knew that if the right people found the wrong things that I've said here, or the ways that I've said them, they would be taken out of context till the cows come home, and they would potentially prevent me from getting jobs, going across borders, or other things, like, I don't know, having the FBI show up to my house. But you know why I said those things and said them in those particular ways? It was not out of some naive assumption that I would never get any kind of heat or attention for the kind of art that I make. I did those things because I knew that that potential response I would have of being forced into destitution, being asked questions about the things that I've said with my First Amendment rights by federal agents, or yes, even being prevented from going across borders. I knew that all these consequences were in the cards. But what did I do? I went all in. Not because I wasn't aware, but because those consequences are part of freedom. I would have rather been free, saying and doing whatever the hell I wanted, sometimes merely for the sake of itself. I would be more free doing those things than if I did not act on my ideas, on my creative will, out of fear. That I saw fear as so fundamentally antithetical to all that I stood for, all that I was striving for. Fear of poverty, fear of banishment, fear of the government. I saw that and its potential of commanding my actions as so antithetical to what I stand for and what my principles are. And in response to that realization, I took a big middle finger to the entirety of the internet and the organized society that unfortunately has gotten its grubby mitts all over the internet, by saying things that I knew would be clipped out of context, that I knew were edgy or problematic, or saying things that are neither of which, but are done so, are conveyed in a way that is edgy or problematic. I have consistently dipped into aesthetics that I don't agree with, that have been propagated by people that I don't agree with the sole intention of being off-putting to people. I had a Chinese flag in my room, on my wall, not because I agreed with the CCP, not because I supported them in any way. I'm an American, for God's sakes. I held that flag up because I wanted to disgust and scare away every single person who would be so not open-minded that they'd see that flag in someone's room and immediately feel so repulsed that they would have to click off the video and unsubscribe. It was a gatekeeping measure. It was a pleb filter. Much in the same way that flying those guns around, flinging them around in those videos that I made during the Wyoming Glow arc, where I intentionally was making myself look absurd and extreme and, frankly, extremely silly. I almost said retarded there, but that's a word that I don't like using that often. Sparingly I will. You know, it's a little lazy to use. But I made myself look that silly because it was off-putting to people. It was shocking. It made people look at me and think twice. And for everybody who would find things like that shocking, I want you to think twice. And I want you to click off. I want you to be disgusted. Because to me, the feeling of disgust that you feel at those meaningless symbols, the disgust that you feel at those things, is confirmation to me of your stupidity. You are the joke. You are the joke when you feel something because of that nonsense. My reaction to that stuff was always offended, good. Of course I don't believe anything extreme. Of course I would never wish harm to anyone. Any of you who have watched my videos where I very earnestly speak about my beliefs know that I have reasonable and relatively moderate stances on many issues. And you also know that I am a reliable and stand-up guy who just wants to love his wife. And friends, for that matter. But if you watch those videos to know those things about me, it's because you got past all of those quote-unquote offensive aesthetics that I've used about things that I don't agree with. All those times I've pointed a gun to be off-putting to people. All those times that I've used quote-unquote offensive language and said things that I didn't believe in order to be off-putting to people, to offend the right kind of people. And so who am I left with? Only the most open-minded people from all across the ideological spectrum who are not sheep who simply parrot whatever talking points they get from some partisan organization that has an economic agenda that benefits from colonizing your mind and continually drip feeding you the same nonsense that everybody else who's programmed to subscribe to this broader media ecosystem is taking in. You know, be it from the left or the right, I have free thinkers on my channel. And I am proud to have cultivated an audience of free thinkers. But I wouldn't have done that. I would not have done that without scaring the right kind of people, without offending the right kind of people. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have my integrity. I would not be holding steadfast to my principles as a creator. That's why I do the schizo titles and thumbnails. That's why I do the off-putting and offensive things in videos. Because it's scaring and offending the right kind of people. But every single one of my quote-unquote colleagues in this so-called Denpa sphere, they wouldn't have the balls to do that. They would be too concerned about the optics, They would be too concerned about how it might potentially affect their job. They would be too concerned about what countries it might keep them from being able to go into. But I am proud to say that I am a good person who says some bad things. The people out there, the NPCs who unsubscribe, who get offended at the things that I say, they are simply incapable of comprehending that concept. Because it displays something that is fundamentally inconsistent with their worldview. It displays the fact that this is not black and white, that this is in fact nuanced. But they can't believe that. That's not what Tucker Carlson told them. That's not what ContraPoints told them. That's not what Sam Cedar told them. That's not what Mehdi Hassan told them, or Hasanabi told them. That's not what Sean Hannity or Matt Walsh or Steven Crowder told them. That stands in opposition to the societal programming that many of us in this world feel like we must subscribe to in order to function. The people out there who tell you that they just want to grill, those people are the biggest threat to the establishment, and by extension, the media ecosystem that props up the establishment. Because organized society today is rooted in that notion that you must follow one of these established ideologies and groups with their own set of presuppositions and premises that you must consistently follow to a T in order to be accepted, in order to be correct, in order to think. But what I tell you is to think for yourself. And if you do that, you're not going to follow the ideological line so dogmatically. You might follow something down this end or that end of the what's it called? I'm so fucking drunk I can't remember what it's called. Spectrum. There. I almost said persuasion, that's why I was hung up on it. Of the spectrum. You might be on this or that side, but that thing that you followed, it was not done in a dogmatic way, and it probably wasn't dogmatic the way there. And so, that's the point of this. The point of this is for me to give up some measure of my own freedom to make the kind of content that I truly believe in for the kind of people that I want to be watching this and to believe in this cause. Those of you out there who just want to grill, who don't want to have your mind colonized by one of these factions in the broader media ecosystem that govern this planet, this country, those of you who just want to think for yourselves, don't want to demonize other people, don't want to moralize about other people, who just want to grill for God's sakes, like me. You're at home on this channel, and I doubt you would be at home anywhere else, because the rest of these people are far too scared to say the things and do the things that I say and do. That is Denpa to me. That was what Denpa was supposed to be. But that's not what Denpa is. Denpa is a bunch of scared children. They may be adults, but they're children. People who either live off their parents' money, stay inside of their house all the time because they're too afraid to leave the house, or they have comfortable positions programming or doing something in the IT sector and never leaving their house because they're too scared to do so. If they do leave their house, they're too scared to form close or meaningful relationships with other people. It is people who are too afraid to say certain racial slurs that have absolutely no meaning in reality, that you are actively removing the power of by saying in public. People who are afraid of saying those things because it might make them demonetized. It might get their video flagged. It might make people want to unsubscribe. It might make them less likely to listen to the points that you're making. But you know what? Maybe those people weren't worth convincing. If the thing that convinces them that you're wrong about the thing that they would otherwise be convinced by is one meaningless word that you uttered in a vlog or on a live stream. It is people who are so terrified of poverty, something that millions upon millions of Americans live in, hundreds of thousands of which even without a house, so terrified of that prospect that they don't even mention the most, and I mean the most, moderate stances that they hold. They don't even show their face in videos because they're afraid that their love of anime might compromise them in the real world. These cowards don't say those things. They don't do those things because they don't want to live like Forrest Anon. They don't have the imagination or the wherewithal to look into all of the various ways that they could prep for something like homelessness or poverty in the event that their views really did get them shafted by the system. They don't want to do all of that stuff to survive or live the best that they can in a world that punishes them for honesty and for being principled. They would instead rather forego principles altogether. These overly coddled, privileged cowards that make up the so-called Denpa scene are people that I'm not about, that I don't have anything to do with. And that isn't to say many of these people are not my friends. Many of them are my friends, and many of them I respect greatly and sympathize greatly with the individual struggles that they go through. But that doesn't make them less cowardly, in my own estimation. And that line of criticism does not take away from any of the strong suits that they have as individuals, many of which I have laid out in this very video. But it is a detractor that they have, at least by my own estimation, by my own standard, a standard that I apply to myself and I follow. And I followed it so strongly, so much, that it has gotten me kicked out of countries, it has prevented me from getting jobs, it has made my life so difficult to the point where I have reoccurring nightmares about the feds showing up to my house and knocking so loudly with their FBI uniforms on in efforts to catch a so-called potential terrorist. I have reoccurring nightmares about that occurring. I have changed my schedules, my behavior, so many aspects of my life because I'm so freaked out by this thing still. But you know what I do? I fight against it every single day. I fight against it every single day because I don't want them to dictate or control me. That fear. And so it is profoundly difficult. And I'm still working to not let that fear dictate my actions, my decisions. But I would have never done or said those things in the first place if I didn't expect this exact kind of blowback and these exact efforts that I'm now having to undertake at this very time. I did all this, expecting all of that, because I am not a coward. Because I had the balls to say those things and to do those things. Because I hold steadfast to my principles. And that's the essence of the Denpa problem. It is a group of lazy, cowardly man-children. People who do not respect hard work. People who do not respect the very concept of reality and objectivity. Notions that hold you to the ground and prevent you from being depressed. People who cannot leave their house to get sunlight, see other people, go on adventures, and do the various things that prevent you from being depressed and anxious stuck inside of your room. They are people who are so depressed and anxious that they are terrified, so terrified of the glowing man, that they would rather not be their fully authentic selves and shitpost and joke and explore ideas they may not fully agree with but might find interesting nonetheless, may not agree with at all but might find interesting nonetheless. Too afraid to share their nuanced views that might be taken out of context by or arouse the suspicion of people in positions of power. I think those are the right kind of people to piss off. Because every time I arouse their suspicion, their offense, I am doing so in recognition, in confirmation of my freedom. This is my freedom. I do this because I am free. But the Denpas, they would rather have their content be in some way controlled by external forces. I will never let myself be controlled by external forces, because I am, at my core, reverberating through every fiber of my being, a free man.